Welcome to Closing the Gap, the show for real estate agents who want to build a better business and a better life. Your host is Steve Stowe, accountant, advisor, and the guy who'll give you a second set of eyes on your numbers. Every week, Steve brings you a conversation you can actually use, the kind that helps you close the gap between where your business is and where you want it to be. So, huddle up, real estate pros. Here's Steve.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to the newest episode of Closing the Gap. And, ask any agent about the scariest word in an inspection report, and it's usually the roof. It's near the top of that worry, right? So today, what we're going to do is we're going to demystify it a little bit from someone who's up there, not every day, but a lot of days.
Yep, most days.
Most days. So this is Tearah Rice. She's with Eco Roofing. I've known her for several years. And so tell us a little bit about yourself and Eco Roofing, Tearah.
Absolutely. I have worked in the roofing industry for actually almost going on 4 years now, which seems crazy to me. And we predominantly work with real estate agents. That is our number one lead source, both real estate agents and home inspectors. So we are very savvy in the process. We are very savvy with all the different personalities and the ebbs and flows of the industry. We are also very, very aware that roofers play a huge impact when it comes to the real estate process.
So tell me about that. How does it potentially make or break a deal?
Absolutely. So because of the age of the valley, especially, we have so many roofs coming into that 18 years and older phase of life that the normal life expectancy of a roof that was built prior to 2016 is about 20 years. So that's why anytime you are either listing or purchasing a house that is somewhere in that age range, we're going to see some sort of roofing opportunity, if you will. So first off, it's very common. And second off, it can be very scary because you have this house that you love and you're like, this is the one. And then you find out that it needs a full roof replacement, which I feel like if you don't have an agent that can confidently walk you through that process can feel very scary. And then this is where agents come in and how they can learn how to appropriately, confidently, and effectively coach their clients on this is nothing. We have trusted partners in place and, we're going to work through this in the deal, whether it be a credit or, we're going to have it done before the house, before you even set foot in the house, or if they're listing the house, we're going to go ahead and do the roof replacement prior so that we just don't even have that issue.
So how much do you see the roof or the roof repair or even the full replacement? How much does that factor into the negotiation between the buyer and seller?
I'd say it factors in a lot. Roofs, I think it's roofs and HVAC is what we see the most here in Arizona. And so because even if the home isn't 20 years old, let's say it's 10 years old, that roof probably needs maintenance. And so whether we like it or not, majority of homeowners, out of sight, out of mind. And because we don't have huge torrential hurricanes, and lately we haven't even seen a ton of rain. And so it's not likely that most people are getting a roof inspection every 2 years like we normally suggest, which means that no one's probably seen that 10-year-old roof since it was first built, which means that it probably has a few broken tiles, and some crusty mortar caps, that need a little bit of attention. But the reason why I bring this up is that no matter what age the roof is, there's probably a few things that need to be addressed in the negotiating process. And so I think, kind of like I mentioned before, I think that so often it is seen as a scary thing when in reality it doesn't have to be. As long as it's pre-talked about and pre-coached and just you're warning clients early on, hey, just so you know, when we start looking at homes in the valley, we're probably going to come across some roofing opportunities and probably some HVAC opportunities. So just be aware that that's going to be on the forefront for sure.
So what sort of roof problems should a buyer genuinely worry about?
So out here, if you are, I would say underlayment obviously is the most important. So everybody thinks that it's the tile or the shingles that is doing the most protection, but in reality, it is the underlayment. And because of the severe heat and weather that we're looking at, if your underlayment is compromised in or compromised in any way, meaning that it's dry or brittle, you are going to be looking at a potential leak. A lot of other things that we see, or that we see is, or that you should be aware of, when you get your inspection report, is improper installation. So it's not even just time and age, it is the quality of work that was done on the roof. So that's another reason why I say, even if the roof is only 5 years old, it's not a bad idea to have somebody go up there if you're purchasing this home to go and look at, the valleys. The valleys are where the roof meets, and we see a lot of like leak points there. And a lot of times it's just because of improper installation. And so those are all things that you can have addressed throughout the negotiating process to give you peace of mind, so you know like what to expect as you move forward. But a lot of it is common too, like the broken tiles and things like that, like tiles break. And and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a leak that season. Just put a few new tiles up there and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. And that leads me to really my next thought is, how does a buyer or even, or a seller even think about, hey, is this just a roof repair or is this a full replacement? I mean,
Yeah.
how do they know the difference?
Right. And here's to give you like both of the perspectives. If you were buying the house and you're going to be in that house for the next 10 years, most buyers, they want the full roof, right? If the roof is 18 years old where it's kind of like on that cusp, we typically see the buyer being like, "Well, I want the new roof. I don't want a $3,000 repair. I would just have peace of mind to have a new roof." Whereas like on the seller side, they're like, yeah, but the roof will be totally sound and fine if we do a $3,000 repair. That should give you at least another 8 to 10 years or whatever you would predict based on the condition of the roof. And so I think it depends on what side you're on and exactly what you're looking at. But along with that, I mean, there are horror stories. I mean, there are majority of like incredible agents that, that do their due diligence. But I mean, there's horror stories of agents that have led clients in the wrong direction as well in regards to that.
Yeah, that's why it's important for the realtor to really to understand roof issues so that they can come from a place of negotiating from strength, right?
Right.
No matter what side
Absolutely.
you're on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and honesty is the best policy. And sometimes we have found, and I have many stories about this, where we found agents that, may or may not be like, "Hey, I need you to not find anything on this roof. Like, I'm
Yikes.
representing the seller and we need there to be no issues." And we're like, "You came to the wrong roofer." Right. So, and I get it. It's very scary, especially as the agent who's like, "Hey, like we're listing this house. Somebody wants to buy it. It's been on the market for however many days. We finally have a buyer. There's no way we can let this deal fall." And it's always very, I'm like, we don't want to kill any deals, but we know that in roofing, unfortunately, we do kill deals. And the only reason that happens is because the expectation is not set, or people just don't want to replace their roof. And so, and the scary thing about roofing is that agent that wants a roofer to not find an issue, if they go to enough roofers, they will find one that will say, "Looks great." And that is the scariest part about the market. And I think that that's probably across the board. So that's why hiring a licensed, credible roofer, credible contractor that's always going to be honest, even if it does kill the deal. And also with agents, you want to make sure you're partnering with an agent that is going to ride or die, tell you the truth no matter what, because ultimately, it's their reputation on the line.
Makes sense. That makes sense. So what's the most common mistake you see agents make when there's a roof issue comes up?
I think the most common mistake that I see when a roofing issue comes up is, wait, are you talking about after there's already been an issue that they're made aware of, or just
Maybe
a
even
mistake in roofing?
before, maybe even after,
Yeah.
before or
Okay. So
after.
I'll give both scenarios. So, I think a lot of agents will avoid the roof altogether, especially if the house is in that 10 to 15-year-old range or under 15 years old. They're like, we're like out of sight, out of mind. If nobody says anything, we're not going to say anything. And the problem with that is that if that agent, if if the buyer goes forward, they purchase the home and the home inspector's like, oh, the tiles look great, because home inspectors legally do not need to lift tiles in the state of Arizona. They're actually told not to. And so that way, a lot of home inspectors will be like, yeah, it looks great. And they are very much in line with their job to say that. And so then the agent doesn't say anything. And then the buyer's in the house for, let's say, a year, 2 years. The first rain comes and the home leaks. Well, the first person that buyer's going to call is the agent and be like, what the heck? I was told the roof was fine. Well, the tiles were fine, but the underlayment, the south side, has been facing the sun for 15 years and, isn't. And so now, like, that agent is not going to get the referral. The buyer's devastated and they're going to go tell 3 more people, like, don't ever use this agent or whatever the case is. So I would say that that's the number one issue we see with agents, is just trying to, like, out of sight, out of mind. When it comes to after, in like the negotiating process, so let's say that a roofing issue comes up and tensions are high, nobody knows kind of how to handle it. I think one mistake the agents make is, not to be repetitive, but is the lack of confidence. I think that they panic alongside their client. They're like, oh my God, the roof, I'm like, I can't believe this happened. Like, I thought the roof was going to be great, rather than just like educating their client and picking a roofer who can also educate their client. It's also important to pick a roofer that does work with agents, and, little things as far as like pay through escrow is something that we offer here at Eco, which, as soon as the client realizes, like, okay, so we have a roofing issue, but I don't have to stress because I can pay with the proceeds that are going to come after the house sells. So that takes a lot of pressure off the table too, because when you're working through the process, you are, I think people feel nickeled and dimed at every corner. There's all these costs that come up. So just little ways like that you can put your client at ease instead of panicking right alongside them. So kind of taking a step back, being educated, and, it's good to kind of have the roofer step in and be the professional. You don't have to be a professional roofer if you partner with the right people.
Well, you can understand the panic on the real estate side, because it has the potential of just blowing up the deal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Absolutely.
I understand the panic,
Yeah.
but it's just being able to, not panic and just,
Mhm.
stay confident throughout the whole process.
Yeah, and that's why, I like, something that I suggest a lot when I'm talking to agents is to take a little bit of time to really educate yourself on the roofing process. Educate yourself on, like, why underlayment is important. Educate yourself on, when you're walking around with your client, what to look at in the fascia. How to identify if a roof is, older than 16 years old or younger than 16 years old, because there's different codes, you know, and things in place where they can already kind of have pre-warned their clients about those things, so that that panic moment doesn't come, right? So then there's never that. So from the very beginning, the agent's calm, client's calm, because they understand the process and there's no surprises as it unfolds. Where it gets hairy is the number of new builds that we've gone on and the roof is just in shambles. I mean, we're talking
A new build?
we see this a dozen times a week. These are homes that are 2 years or less, still under warranty, or in that 3 to 4 year range, which is even worse. And there's severe roof issues. It is more and more common across the valley. We are seeing it tenfold every week. We're getting more and more. So that's where, absolutely, like, you don't expect that. The agent
No,
doesn't
not at all.
expect that. The buyer doesn't expect that. And the poor seller doesn't expect that. So again, the only thing that you can do at that point is just lean into whoever you trust, and know that even though this is a scenario that is not ideal and is very scary, you do know that you have people on your side that aren't going to take advantage of you, that are going to walk you through the process. And then at that point, you decide, is this house the right house? Right. And that's always a tough decision to make. But on those, when the surprises do come, there's nothing you can do about those, unfortunately.
Right. I mean, let's face it, most agents don't get into the business to become an expert at roofing, right?
No,
And
no,
so where can they educate themselves a little bit better?
absolutely. So, I mean, I would start with your trusted neighborhood partners. I always say to start with the people who you're referred to, your friends, your family, and your neighbors. Ask them first, who have you used? Who has actually been at your home? And then if everyone's like, oh, my roof is perfect. From there, then I would spread out to my community, and I would probably lean into, a community group, a Facebook group, and just kind of get a good idea of like who has a really good reputation. And I know that all the roofers, like in our sphere, I mean, we work with a lot of other roofers as well, and we're all ready and willing to give that education. Even on social media, we provide videos all the time of like, if you're a real estate agent, what to look at. And so I think that it's out there. And I think that if you were to just reach out, then absolutely, all of those sources are there for you. We also provide a video every time we go out. We go up on the roof. Our roofing specialist does a full video of basically everything that you're going to see in the estimate, which means that if they come back and say you have 22 broken tiles, the underlayment looks pretty okay, the mortar caps could use a little love, they're going to point that out in the video, which also is great education for the agent, great education for the buyer or seller, and also builds trust, right? So you're not looking at this estimate being like, great, well, this says $12,000, but do I really know if this is the work that needs to be done? You can actually see it. And I think the agents can also use that as an education tool, show me.
Hey everyone, it's Steve again. Here's a quick word about what I actually do all day. I run a bookkeeping business, and realtors are my favorite people to work with, so I put together a package just for them. Monthly categorization in QuickBooks, clean reconciliations, and tax-ready reports, all backed by an advisor who actually picks up the phone. And here's something just for listeners of this show. Sign on as a client, and I'll cover your Monarch Money subscription, the tool that finally separates your personal and business spending, free for as long as you're with me. Plans start at a simple, flat monthly rate, about $10 a day. So if you're tired of tax season being a fire drill, come talk to me at Apex Accounting and Advisory. Now, back to our show.
Great. We've talked about this in the past, but with drone technology nowadays, right? There's some roofers that say we don't have to get on the roof to look at everything, right? I'm hearing that. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that's huge in our industry. I know a lot of roofers who I very much respect who are turning to droning only. And just like I mentioned before, let's take an average concrete tile as an example. Like your concrete tile is going to last for 100 years as long as there's no issues with the tile itself. It's going to last for a really long time. Which means that as it sits on your roof, the majority of your tiles are going to look great. But then you're like, well, now I have this leak. Where's it coming from? Well, the leak is coming from the underlayment underneath because that is ultimately the water or the water barrier. And so, I mean, if you fly a drone, there's absolutely no way to see that. And so if you are doing a thorough inspection, you not only need to lift tiles, but you have to lift tiles on multiple slopes on the home because just like I'd kind of mentioned before, the side of the house that gets direct sunlight, the underlayment on that side of the house is going to deteriorate a lot faster than the underlayment on the opposite side of the house, which means that you could probably on a 22-year-old roof just do a full slope replacement and get another 8 years or 5 years out of the other side of your home. But if you're droning only, there is no way to know that. And that's why the reputation for roofers in the Valley and probably everywhere becomes bad when roofers always send a full roof as far as like estimates go. And that means that they probably droned it. They haven't gone up because the house is 20 years old. They're like full roof replacement. And it gives roofers a really bad reputation because there's a lot of 20-year-old roofs that don't need to be replaced that look great. But then we see, but then there's a lot of 15-year-old roofs that aren't that great. And you would only know that if you were taking the time to climb up, lift tiles, and really look at what's going on there. There's no other way to figure it out.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that there's a lot of that out there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and let's say the roof is 30 years old and you were to only fly a drone and you're like, oh, you need a full roof replacement. It's 30 years old. And they wouldn't have even known the roof could have been replaced 3 years prior. The roof could have been replaced 5 years prior, but they just assume the house is 30 years old, so it needs a full roof. And so, how devastated would you be to replace a roof that was just replaced 3 years
Yeah,
prior because your roofer didn't do the due
agreed.
diligence?
So are there any like cheap things a homeowner can do that would meaningfully extend a roof's life? Maybe something that an agent
Absolutely.
can pass on?
Yeah, yeah. So there's lots of ways to go out and or go out. We always say, walk outside, look up, and just look at your roof. If you look underneath your eaves and you start to see maybe some watermarks or where it's cracking, or you just start to see one part doesn't look the same as another part, that's a telltale sign to probably get a complimentary inspection. If you have a lot of debris buildup on your roof and you can see it from the street and you look up and you're like, oh, I have a bunch of leaves all lining up in the dead valleys, another sign, or to have a roofer come out. What we're seeing a lot in the valley is a bird problem. So if you have a bird problem, you absolutely want to keep up on your roof because the birds make a mess and the acid in their mess just deteriorates your roofing system. If you have a tree, that hangs over onto your roof, that's going to affect it. So basically, an inexpensive way to stay on top of your roofing system is to take initiative whenever you see any of those small things. They say 2 years. I say just go out and look, right? Every so often, go out and peek. If your roof is reaching that 12 years plus, at that point, every year or two, either probably before monsoon season, I would have someone come out. It's free. Everybody wants to avoid getting a complimentary inspection because they don't want to be sold to. And while I completely understand that we are all oversold and it is exhausting, I say utilize your complimentary inspection and take your little tile maintenance things that come about every 5 or so years. It's $700 to get 10 tiles replaced and just keep up on that because then your roof is going to last for 30, 35 years with no issues at all. The only reason we have issues earlier on is typically because no one has seen it and no one has been able to fix them. And it's the reason why insurance doesn't cover roofing in, I'd be bold and say 90% of cases, is because people neglect their roof. And so if an agent was going to pass any valuable information, it would be don't be afraid to get the free inspection. And then you at least know what's going on.
It's interesting you say that because we bought a new home about a year and a half ago. And
Uh-huh.
after about 6 months of living in the home, I heard, my office is in the front of the house and I could hear pigeons, right? They were cooing and I could tell that they were on the roof. And I said, no big deal. It's just pigeons, right? And I wouldn't have done anything. And then we did our 1 year inspection on the home because it was a new build. And then the inspector tells us, hey, you know what? There's a lot of things that can go wrong with pigeons just nesting on the roof,
Yep.
because it's highly acidic what they leave behind, and then they nest there. And then even when they go away, they still come back, right? And
Yep.
so we had that
Absolutely.
inspection done, and so now we're in the process of getting those pigeons removed. And that's one of those things it's just like really innocuous. It doesn't feel like a big deal,
Yeah.
but it could really lead to big things down the road.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It just seems like, oh, that's so inconvenient. But yes, people just don't realize the repercussions of these little tiny animals that are just, building their little families up there.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing, I mean, with the debris. So what? It's a few leaves, right? But that little tiny trail of leaves is causing water to back up and it's slowly eating through that portion of your roof. So it's just funny that something that small can make such a significant
Yeah.
difference.
So how does having a roofer they trust actually change what an agent, can do for their clients? Why is that important to have that person in their pocket?
Having a roofer that you trust, I feel like is the game changer Because you know that when they say like, hey, this roof is only a few years old and I hate to break this to you, you have to tell your client, there's no way that I would buy this house with the roof in this condition. And I think the agents have to have that confidence to be able to present, right? And if they don't have a roofer that they genuinely know, like, and trust, they're not going to feel that. And obviously neither is their client. Also, I mean, it is ultimately the real estate agent's reputation. And we say that all the time. Like, I mean, we do not take it lightly that we are a branch of their business. We are there to quite literally make them look good in any way that we can, so that they can grow and they can expand and they can get more or more referrals. And so, trust only comes with time and delivering on everything that you say that you will deliver on. And so I truly believe that when you partner with people, they always do that. And we say that we're not perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. We're all human. But partnering with companies that will back their work no matter what is the key. Everybody makes mistakes, but are they going to make it right? Are they going to go back to your client's house time and time again and make sure that the job is done right every single time?
For an agent that doesn't have a go-to roofer, how do you go about finding one?
Eco Roofing Solution. If you need a go-to roofer, Eco Roofing Solutions is it. I am biased, clearly, but I say all the time that like if I walked into the office and they said, "Hey, Tearah, we're going to be selling corn on the cob on the corner from now on," and I truly be like, "All right, sounds good." And I love to highlight that because sometimes I forget that we even sell roofs, right? Because of the fact that we're backed on a strong foundation, we're backed on morals and core values that, like, it wouldn't matter what they said that we're presenting, like, I'm in 100. And that's what I bring to agents. That's what I bring to our clients, is getting to share that with everybody in our community, because this is my neighborhood too, right? This is my reputation too. And so I just feel very blessed to work for a company that is that power partner, that is going to go to bat for you and is going to do everything in our power to make sure that the deal goes smoothly, because we care about it as much as you do.
Made a really strong point in, being referable. And that's one of the things that we talk about all this month is, how we're more referable. And you've done a really good job at it. So what's the secret?
Thank you. The secret to being referable is showing up and doing what you say you're going to do every single time. It's very easy to give lip service. And I give the example that every roofing owner is going to say that their company is the best, right? But I'm not an owner. I'm an employee. I choose to be here. In all 900 roofing companies here in the Valley, I choose to be here every day. And so I believe that we are a great referral partner and we are referable because of the buy-in, because of the core values, because of the foundation that we have. We are relentless in being a community roofer.
Love that. Love that. So tell me one myth that you want to bust for agents and their clients about roofs. Mythbuster.
One myth. Oh, we already talked about this, but this is the ultimate myth. Just because a roof is 20 years old does not mean it necessarily needs to be replaced. So if you have someone come out and they fly their drone and they say it's 20 years old, it has to be replaced, maybe a myth. So I say challenge them on that. I think a lot of people truly believe that, and you shouldn't, because you may not need to do that.
Got it. That's good. Anything else that an agent, needs to understand about roofs that we didn't talk about?
No, I think we touched on quite a bit. The number one thing is to never sacrifice never sacrifice honesty or morals to win the deal. Ultimately, partner with the right people, always tell the truth, educate yourself, and, never ever sacrifice that for a single deal, because that's your reputation.
Great. Thank you. So how can our listeners get a hold of you, Tearah?
All right. You can find me at Not Your Average Roofer AZ on Instagram, or you can go to ecoroofaz.com to schedule a complimentary inspection, or 480-695-7736. So you can find us. We're all over the place.
All over the place. I can vouch for that. And also, Tearah's
Yeah.
information we'll have in the show notes for you so that you can contact her pretty easily. Tearah, thanks for being our guest. I appreciated our time.
Thank you.
And we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
All right, team, let's bring it home. Here's what I want you to take from Tearah today. The roof is one of the fastest ways a deal falls apart, and most agents only think about it once it's already a problem in an inspection report. The agents who win are the ones who see it coming. They know the difference between a scary sounding roof and a genuinely bad one. They get ahead of an aging roof before it hits the negotiation table, and they've got a roofer they trust on speed dial before they even need one. That last part is the whole game this month. Being referable isn't about knowing everything yourself. It's about being the agent who always knows who to call. A trusted roofer in your back pocket means a calmer you, a faster close, and that's more valuable to every client you serve. So here's your one move this week. Find your roofer. If you've already got one you can trust, call them. Not about a deal, just to strengthen the relationship. If you don't have one yet, ask 2 agents you respect who they use and make one call. That's it. One roofer, one call. Build the bench before the game's on the line. That's how you close the gap between a good agent and the one everyone refers. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Closing the Gap with Steve Stowe. If you got something you can use this week, follow the show wherever you're listening. That's how these conversations reach the next agent who needs them. And if your books are stressing you out, or you just want a second set of eyes on your numbers, there's a free consult waiting at Apex Accounting and Advisory. No pressure, no pitch, just help. Steve shows up here every Monday. We'll see you next week. Keep closing the gap.